this film is better than the first one. What's up, everybody? Back today to talk about The Conjuring 2, of course directed by Master James Wan, or maybe future master, I would say. I think he's got a good future, although I don't like a lot of his films. I like Saw, and I think probably this is the second best film he's ever made. I was not a fan of the original Conjuring. I thought it was an okay run-of-the-mill movie. You know, maybe I'll go back and watch it now because I like this one so much. I did like Vera Farmiga in the first one. She's great in this one. Let's get into it a little bit. The Conjuring 2, you know, of course it follows the Warrens, and there were a couple that, you know, were ghost hunters in the 60s and 70s. And, you know, they did it before it was popular, basically. And, you know, they were involved with some pretty big cases, and The Conjuring 1 was based on one of their cases, based on a true story. And so is this one. Of course, this one takes place in England, and not that the story at its core is much better. I just like the way they focused more on the Warrens, and just the baddies in this one. The demon, the evil thing was just out of hand, and then the way James Wan did it in a few scenes, I loved it. So let's get into the good stuff. First of all, was that, yeah, the creature, the demon, man, they have this one scene in the film where they're at the Warrens' house, and I actually felt shivers up my spine. I mean, James Wan's not subtle, but it pays off in some of the scenes because, man, he just goes for it over the top. The one scene in the Warrens' house in the end of this film where Lorraine Warren's kind of battling this evil demon in the house in Britain, man, that is some great visuals, pretty intense. I was really getting into it. I mean, I was in a crowd of people. I was just dreading it. I didn't like the crowd, and it just blew me away. The action at the end, the scene in the house, and then the beginning of the movie was just a tribute to horror fans and, you know, the Amityville people, because it kind of starts off with the Amityville 2, you know, what really happened at the Amityville house in real life, and they kind of tie it into this movie. I like that part. So it was off to a great start. A little slow in the beginning, but the ending was just brilliant. The way they did the demon, the visuals, like I said, nothing subtle, and I'll talk about it in the bad parts, but yeah, I just love the way they portrayed the Warrens. They're kind of like their own, you know, heroes. I'm sure they weren't this dynamic in real life. Man, I just like the way Patrick Wilson plays the husband, and of course Vera Farmiga, great performance, both of them. You know, James Wan uses some, you know, camera work and stuff to kind of liven things up a little bit, because like I said, the story is pretty basic. You know, it's a haunting story, and it does suffer a few things, but like I said, the scares were there. I mean, plenty of jump scares, which I know people don't like, but it kind of worked a little better. I think James Wan's upping his game a little bit. Like I said, I think this is probably my second favorite film of his. It's probably Saw, this one, and then Death Sentence. I just watched that one recently, and I did like that one quite a bit. And the Insidious films are good too, but they're kind of like the PG-13 cousins to, I guess, The Conjuring or whatever. So, yeah, and they also had a little bit of comic relief in this film, and they actually had quite a bit. It was pretty funny. I mean, it takes itself seriously in certain scenes, and then other scenes, you know, it had fun with itself, which I liked. In the long run, when you go to watch a film again, the comedy's gonna, you know, refresh it when you go watch it. You know, so basically it is a well-made film. Let's get into the bad stuff because, of course, you know, maybe I'm going off like I should have went off about the first film, you know, but I really like this one. So, and it was just, I wouldn't say a breath of fresh air because it's a lot of the same stuff we've seen, but, you know, it was James Wan just, I think, on his game or whatever, as you would say. So let's get into the bad real quick. Just, you know, it's the common haunting story, similar to other James Wan films. You know, it almost feels like Insidious and Conjuring take place in the same universe. A lot of the baddies look the same, and you know, he kind of goes there, they look the same a little bit on this one, but at the end it changes up a little bit, and I would say he was probably inspired a little bit by the Babadook, because one of the creatures kind of looks a little bit like a cross between Slender Man and Babadook. I don't know, that's what I was thinking when I saw it. So yeah, I mean, that's not a bad part of the film. And of course the based on a true story thing, I never liked that, because you know basically what's going to happen. How much jeopardy could, you know, Mr. Warren be in if it's based on a true story? Because, you know, it's like the Titanic. Like, I always use the Titanic as a perfect example of why true stories are bad, because you knew at the end the ship was going to sink. Who cares what happened to Jack and Rose or whatever their names was, but at the end you knew the big plot point was, yeah, this ship's going to sink because it's history. It's based on a true story. So you know that Ed Warren's not really in that much trouble. And overall, I think the body count was a little low on this film. I mean, that's like nitpicking, because like I said, the effects on the creature and all that were superb. The intensity of some of the scenes was really up there. He has the intense scenes, and then he does mix in his jump scares, so it's a pretty good ride. Vera Farmiga, great performance. Patrick Wilson, I believe is his name, great performance. You know, the little British kids, at the beginning of the film, it's a little long, and I'm like, it's like two separate stories, and then they intersect, and that's when the movie basically gets good. The little British kids, you know, it's like, oh, I don't like little kid actors, so, you know, having 4 of them in a movie, that's one thing I learned from these Conjuring movies. Don't have more than like 2 kids, because, you're opening yourself up to haunting, definitely. Yeah, so that's my review of The Conjuring 2. I liked it. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5, actually. I'm going to be nice because, you know what? The film was good enough to overcome the shitty crowd. And it was a fun watch, and it was entertaining most of all, and that's like the most important thing of all movies, and it's accessible to all. 4.5 out of 5 for The Conjuring 2, James Wan. I'm being nice this time. And if you've seen The Conjuring 2, comment down below and tell me what you thought, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.